Hey friends, welcome to the Raising Boys and Girls podcast. I'm Sissy Goff.
And I'm David Thomas.
And I'm Melissa Trevathan.
And we're so glad you joined us for this conversation. Let's dive in. Michael Ware is president and CEO of the Center for Christianity and Public Life, a nonpartisan institution based in Washington, D.C., with the mission to contend for the credibility of Christian resources and public life for the public good. He is a trusted resource and advisor for a range of civic leaders on matters of faith and public life. He is married to Melissa and a dad of 2 girls. Melissa Ware is owner and principal consultant of Public Square Strategies, a sought-after consulting firm that helps faith-based and secular institutions in the U.S. and Europe navigate 21st century public issues. She holds a bachelor and master's degree from American University in European politics. She is married to Michael and the mom of 2 girls, and we are so thankful for Michael and Melissa's voices at such a divisive time in our world. Enjoy this conversation around kids and politics with some wise, steady guides.
We are so excited to have this conversation with the 2 of you. We're excited for any conversation with the 2 of you, but especially right now in this climate that we're living in. We respect both of your work, your wisdom so much. Honored to get to call you friends, even though we haven't ever gotten to be in the same place at the same time physically, but from a distance, and family members through the TSF network, which is super fun.
Yes.
And as we were working on these questions, I read a quote on your website that I loved that I'm going to read out loud for everybody to hear that says, "Even as we find ourselves in a crisis of disillusionment and even despair about the state of American politics, Michael Ware reminds us that we must hold fast to the belief that we can change our country and our world for the better. Each of us would do well to adopt at least a bit of Ware's realistic hopefulness." And Melissa, we know you offer the same. And so before we jump into too much of that, will y'all just start off by talking a little bit about your family and how you found your way to the work you're doing now?
Yeah. Why don't you start?
Yes. So we're parents to 2 little girls, Saoirse and Ilaria. Saoirse's 5, Ilaria's 3. And that keeps us really busy. Really, really busy because they're just at that age where they just need a lot and they're asking a lot of questions and they're questioning the world and that kind of stuff. So I've been very busy with that. And I'm a consultant. I work from home. I decided to leave a 9-to-5 job back in 2019 when we had Saoirse because I just wanted to be with her more. And so I've been consulting since then. I have a firm called Public Square Strategies. And so I help institutions, so secular and faith-based institutions, navigate all of these big 21st century public issues on both sides of the Atlantic, in the UK and in the US. And I studied international politics. I loved international politics from a very young age. You could ask my mom at 10 years old. I told her I want to be a human rights lawyer. I quickly
at 10 years old, Melissa, wow.
And I figured out in my teens that I was not probably going to do law, but I do international relations. And so I went to school, a bachelor's and master's in European politics. I think Europe is the most interesting thing in the world. Apparently that's what gets me going. So I'm internationally focused, and a lot of my work does that, but working with Michael and working in religion and politics, a lot of that is domestic focused as well. And I became Christian in my teens. And Michael and I are high school sweethearts. And one of the ways we bonded over that was that we became Christians pretty much at the same time, and attending the same church. And so we found Christ together somehow along the same path. Yeah.
It's so cool. Y'all, I didn't know that part of your story. I love that.
Yeah. So I'm from Buffalo, New York as well. And, Melissa gave a lot of the family history. I'm founder, president and CEO of the Center for Christianity and Public Life. And that's a nonprofit with the mission to contend for the credibility of Christian resources in public life for the public good. And so folks can learn more about that at ccpubliclife.org. And then I wrote a book this year called The Spirit of Our Politics, the spiritual formation and the renovation of public life. And that book draws on the ideas of Dallas Willard to talk about the place of politics as one aspect of the life we're living with Jesus. And so that's the work we do. We live in, I don't know if I can't remember if you mentioned this. We live in Baltimore. No. We live in Baltimore now, and but still our hearts are in Buffalo.
Yeah.
Mm.
I'm so thankful, Michael. You mentioned the book, and we're going to talk more about it. But we're going to go ahead and say right here out of the gate, for any parent listening, that's your assigned reading this election season. For any moment you find yourself sliding into cynicism, despair, or hopelessness, there is an incredible read by a trusted voice. So that's your assigned reading right now. And thinking about that, we would love to ask you both, thinking about the work you do professionally, but also personally as parents, how do we talk to kids about the election?
So I know Melissa has a lot of thoughts on this. I think there are a couple things, and right, age matters quite a bit. I think in the life of the church generally, also in the context of families and with our children, I think it's vital to take the political conversation and place it within and under the life we're living with Jesus. And so I think too often we talk about politics and we set up this environment in which, we have our family, we have our values, but when we're talking about politics, it's kind of like different rules and it's a whole different, and our kids pick up on that. And so instead, one great way to make sure that your family is not merely reacting to our politics, but that you're actually doing the work of parenting within the context of politics is, there's an angry politician. What do you think anger does for that person? Do you think that anger is effective in politics? And if so, why? And does that, what about your life? Do you find that anger is effective for you? And all of a sudden you're able to get to the core of what your family, what your child believes about life generally. Taking sort of promptings from our politics. I think the other thing is I have a friend in my life who, their son was getting involved, was spending a lot of time on Twitch. So there are basically video game streamers that they'll play video games, but they'll talk about all kinds of things. And my friend's son was watching a Twitch streamer who was talking about politics a lot and was really investing a lot in this person. And my friend said, I'm worried that I'm not worried that my son is interested in politics or even the direction of his politics, but this person is too certain and too snarky and I'm worried about this new political influence in my son's life. And I think oftentimes for parents, when we see an influence like that, our reaction is, well, we need to cut it off. We need to totally do a 180 direction. I don't like where this is headed. But the advice I had for my friend was, the problem with the Twitch streamers and so much of like the political entertainment is it's actually far removed from our politics. Like it actually has little to do with the actual work of politics. And so my guidance for my friend was, is there something that you could invite your son into where you could do some practical work together? Does your son have ideas about education? Well, why? Could you take time to go to a school board meeting with your son?
Great.
Could you take time to volunteer with your son at a nonprofit that's doing education advocacy work? And not only will you bond with your son and show interest in what your son cares about, but your son, as opposed to living in this world of abstract good versus evil, us versus them, your son may actually come into contact with like how difficult and complicated the work of politics actually is. And so that's another way we can, like we would in so many other contexts, show interest in what your child has an interest in.
Yes. Love that, y'all.
And especially with Michael just said at the end there, just to put it in other terms, is with the election, talking to them about the election. one of the best ways for you yourself as a parent to care about the election, to become civically involved, is if you're answering your kids' questions, if you're being an open book with them about, hey, what have you heard at school about the election? What are
Yes.
people talking about? What are they thinking about? What is being said? You start with those questions. And then, it will cause you as a parent to look up, what do the current presidential candidates think? What are the people who are running for school board? What are the people who are running for a judge position, comptroller, whatever in your locality? A lot of times what's really great about this is if we actually sit and we're open, and we're also, again, like Michael's saying, placing this within and under the life of Jesus, so we're actually becoming more informed about politics ourselves, which is always a good thing, especially when it comes to local politics. You are, ready and open and willing to talk about it. That means that you're going to actually be figuring out a lot of these things together with your child as well, which I think is always a good thing, so that when you go to the voting booth, you can say you know who you're voting for and bring them with you.
That would be good. Yeah.
It would be good.
That's another way to teach your kids about the election, is bring them with you to vote, even if they're even if they're 16, just be like, yeah, just come with me.
Yeah.
Eat McDonald's afterwards,
Right.
That's so good. Are you looking for something simple and delicious to add to your wellness routine?
Like cake?
That's not what I had in mind, but you could use this as an ingredient in your cake.
Tell me more.
I love putting honey in my hot tea this time of year. I add it to protein shakes, salad dressings, and so much more. And Monocora puts all other honey to shame. I love its richness, creaminess, complexity of flavor, health benefits, you name it.
Connie adds it to her coffee first thing in the morning. Monocora honey is rich, creamy, and the most delicious honey you've ever had. It's ethically produced by Monocora's master beekeepers in the remote forest of New Zealand.
Monocora honey contains powerful nutrients to support immunity and gut health. The bees collect the nectar from the Monica tea tree in New Zealand. The nectar is packed with bioactives, and the honey that is produced has 3 times more antioxidants and prebiotics than your average honey.
Those bees are working so hard. It's a game changer, and all you need is 1 heat teaspoon each morning to get the most out of the amazing bioactives in Manuka. Additional usage through the day is completely fine, especially helping to cut out other sweeteners. It's a honey with superpowers.
Now it's easier than ever to try Monocora honey. Head to monocora.com/RBG to get $25 off the starter kit, which comes with an MGO 850 plus Monica honey jar, 5 honey travel sticks, a wooden spoon, and a guidebook.
That's manukora.com/RBG for $25 off your starter kit.
I have a bunkin' party coming up with the boys, and they are going to lose their minds when they see what KiwiCo just delivered to my house. KiwiCo is launching KiwiCo Clubs to engage kids on a journey of seriously fun learning. With KiwiCo Clubs, kids will learn the fundamentals through hands-on projects and progressively build their skills with each new project they work on. Watch your kids go from learning to build bows and arrows to engineering their own robot.
Bows and arrows, robots, those boys are indeed going to lose their minds. KiwiCo has 5 clubs to choose from with unique topics like science, engineering, and art. More than just a crate, KiwiCo Club members get amazing perks like 10% off orders, free shipping in the U.S., and early access to new crates.
We are doing the engineering and art clubs.
You could be setting those boys up to get some serious scholarships in college someday.
I hope so, all while having fun and staying off screens. We're about to build the Halloween motion sensing spider. That's the only spider I can deal with.
Your child can discover cool science and art concepts with fun hands-on projects delivered monthly, seriously fun projects that are built to last.
KiwiCo does the legwork for you, so you can spend quality time tackling projects together. There's no commitment, so you can pause or cancel anytime.
Tinker, create, and innovate with KiwiCo. Get up to 50% off your first crate at kiwico.com, promo code RBG.
That's up to 50% off your first crate at kiwico.com, promo code RBG. Well, y'all, we have been counseling kids for 30 years-ish, both of us. And it was really interesting. In all of that time of counseling kids, the last election was the first time I really remember kids talking about feeling ostracized,
Yeah.
criticized, demeaned at school because of their beliefs, because of their thoughts. And it was in every direction. And just would love to hear y'all talk about how do we help those kids? What kind of conversations do we have with them?
I think the first thing is to give them space in our homes.
Hmm.
You know, I tell a story in the beginning of my book about a friend, another friend whose daughter was in college, had stopped going to church, and had didn't see how the values that she was raised with aligned with the work and political views that her mother had. And I think this is a common thing and happens in a lot of different ways. But what was really moving to me about my friend's response was she said, "Michael, I no longer care about the future of my daughter's politics. I just want her to start going to church with her family again." And when we're able to set our priorities in the right place, right? Like, you know, it's one thing if your child is an international activist of great influence, you know, maybe you need to be more concerned about their political views. But I think for most of us, our kids are just thinking through what they believe about the world, and that's going to be different 6 months from now than it is today in many ways. And so we want to make sure that we're not making an idol of our own political views so much that we're privileging our politics ahead of our relationship with our children or our children's relationship with God. We need to make sure we're not sort of conflating what's really at the core of our faith and what we want our kids to carry with them with political opinions. And I think that can be really, really difficult for folks. I do think if kids have security in the home in that way, the threat of being ostracized in social circles will sting less and carry less weight. And then I think, you know, it's an opportunity for we want our kids to be able to stand on their convictions. We want our kids to understand that disagreement is not being ostracized. That actually just because someone's disagreeing with you doesn't always mean it could just be a disagreement. And then we want them to have the resilience to, yes, be people of joy, be people of humility, but also you can advance what you think. You don't need to hide your lights under a bushel. But yeah, I'm not sure. I wonder what you'd have to say on this.
Yes, I also think there's, because Michael, you and I also talk about this as well, that key balance too, especially with kids who are figuring out things in the world, who could 6 months from now change their mind about something, is that teaching your kids about disagreement and what disagreement actually means. And teaching your kids about, you know, if they have a conviction, and kind of like the past example you gave of like, okay, let's actually, you know, do something about those convictions, you know, taking some kind of civic action is also on top of all that with your kids very early on, talking with them about how this idea, and this is also another one that's really good for us adults, is reminding yourself almost like with using this as a rhythm of, I could be wrong.
Yeah.
I could be wrong is a very powerful statement. And I don't know is also another one. Has nothing to do with this particular topic, but those are two statements that are very good to teach your kids within the context of politics. And I think also within the context of life in general.
Yes.
This idea that I could be wrong.
Yeah.
So we hold our convictions, is that especially if we believe they're fundamental in some kind of way, or, you know, they're about justice or, you know, love and mercy and like all these great things that we have. But also when it comes to the realm of life now and the kingdom that we're building here now, with all these other actors, with all these other beliefs, with all these other extenuating circumstances, even the things that we believe and the way that they actually action out into the world, sometimes we figure out we're wrong. And so therefore we hold some of these things lightly, especially with the how do these things actually work out in the world? Once your kid's older and you could talk about something like policy and what policy means, the way that we actually take our convictions into something, we have to just hold these things a little bit lightly as well. Holding things lightly allows us to be able to figure out when we're wrong and how to move forward and things like that. And I think that those kinds of exercises, especially as kids get older and they're in school and that ostracization and all those big feelings, it helps a lot.
Thank
Oh,
you.
so
Thank
good.
you both. So we've been talking a lot about empathy on the podcast lately, and would love to ask you both just how could we use the election as a time to build both empathy and awareness with kids and adolescents?
Yes, I think that this is a great question to feed into what we've already been saying. Your home being a place to ask any kind of question about any of these issues that they might be hearing percolating, and hearing what they have to say and asking them, well, why did you hear this? And usually it's because they heard it from some other kid or a group of kids, and ask them, well, why do you think they said that? Or why do you think they feel that way? Those are just very simple questions to be asking your kids, just to sort of, it'll give you as the parent, the lay of the land, which will be good for you context wise to continue to, have that conversation well. But it will also cause your kids to think about, how is that other person thinking through this?
Yeah.
And why were they angry when they were talking about it? Why do you think they're angry? Why do you think they're frustrated? Why do you think they got really heated? Those are very good questions to help your kids think through, especially when they bring something home, a big question that they heard from someone else, or they already, again, they hold some conviction about some sort of thing. They come home and they're like, this person, they felt this way. How could they possibly feel that way?
Yeah. Yeah. Right. I think so much of parenting is really like just life stuff. So right, we all need people to help us process through disagreements that we had or things that we heard. And like one of the beautiful things about parenting is that we really share so much with our kids, but we're able to give our kids a perspective that honestly we often need ourselves. And so being able to have the distance from a situation to say, well, I know that you took this point of view this way and that this doesn't really map on your experience or the experience we've had as a family, but they might be looking at it from this perspective. And what would it be like for you to put on their experience just as an experiment, and how might you approach this issue if you had the kind of life experience or needs of your classmate? And that, like, we need that too. That's not our kids need to do, but the honor of being in the position of helping our kids gain a broader perspective and yes, an empathy, but not just an empathy, but a more fully orbed a sense of all the particularities and nuances of why there's disagreement. Because the honest answer is, like, so much of our political disagreement today is the presidents often say this, if a decision is coming to my desk, it's because no one else could decide the issue. It's, there's a good argument on one side, there's a good argument on the other. And that's what so much of our politics is. And so we can help our kids see how that could be the case when so often it can be hard to do that, especially in the heat of the moment.
Yeah. Great. And you're right. There's so many life skills in that for all of us and things for us to be working on. What other good, because I do think there's so much in this day and time, what other good do you feel like this season can grow in kids?
I've traveled around the country quite a bit this year, and I've become concerned. There are worse postures that Christians can take, but you get the sense talking with people about this election as if, they'll say things like, I hope we get through it. I just I just hope, my
Yes.
my church doesn't fall apart, or I hope that,
Yes.
my community, that we're able to just get through without a big argument sort of, separating us. It's almost as if we just think our politics is happening to us. And so there's a real crisis of agency. And so much about, again, parenting life is taking responsibility for what you have responsibility over and letting the outcomes that you're not responsible for not be outcomes that you yourself take full responsibility over, because they're not your outcomes alone. And so a great spiritual maturity can develop in our families with our kids when they come to understand that their responsibility is not to persuade everyone to agree with them. Their responsibility is not interject their political opinion in every kind of circumstance. Their responsibility is actually to put on the things of Christ. Their responsibility is to steward the limited political influence they have. And really for kids in this country, you can't vote, and you could help them think through the kind of political responsibility they could take on. But really it's, how are they doing what they are doing, and are they doing it in the spirit of Jesus? And that can be an opportunity for great growth that applies in other places. So I've talked about anger, but when we think about the role of fear in politics, having a conversation with our children, is gentleness viable when we're talking about politics? And if not, why don't you think so? Is joy, that Dallas Willard defined joy as a pervasive and constant sense of well-being. What a wonderful dinner table conversation to ask. Does our politics reflect a pervasive and constant sense of well-being? And why do you think that is? And so, yes, this season, as opposed to being something we run away from, or something to say, do you know what? After the election, when the heat is off, then maybe we could get back to discipleship in the family, in the context of the family. No, this is actually can be a really wonderful environment for your kids to gain confidence that the way of Jesus holds up in all of life.
Yes. To jump off of that, so two things that we could help our kids grow directly off of that: prayer and praying about current events, praying about whatever is going on in politics. And right now it's the election, but it eventually will not be the election. And so our politicians need us praying for them. I mean, from the local level to the state level to the federal level, the president of the United States, prime ministers in other countries, they need us praying for them.
Even when we don't agree with them, right?
Yes. Even when we agree with them. And it's a really good thing to help your kids. And it doesn't have to have with the prayer every night, but, say something bothered them that day, or something came up, they watched a debate with you, whatever it is. Say, let's, in tonight's prayers, or whenever it is that you pray with them, if it's in the morning, let's pray for so-and-so today, or let's pray for this specific group today. I think it's a great thing to be doing with your kids, because then again, you're placing, as Michael said in the beginning, you're placing all of this within the kingdom now, and with your life with Jesus.
And to your point, how powerful for our kids to see us praying for politicians we don't agree with.
Right.
Yes.
If you're grousing about a politician, make sure your kids see you praying for that politician as well. And what a witness that would be to your kids, that in your own life, politics is rightly situated, that you haven't made an idol of politics, that you could wish to bless people that you even consider to be an enemy. That is just, I think we so often think about instilling in our children sort of right beliefs, right ways to think. But if that is detached from the spirits with which we go about our life, then I think what I've seen, and I do a lot of work on college campuses, is that when the spirit is not consistent with the beliefs or the worldview, our kids sniff that out right away, and they'll usually they can tend to dismiss all of it. But when you're able to show a consistent spirit, and of course we're all imperfect and that sort of thing, but I love that idea of yes, our children seeing us pray for politicians that they know we don't agree with. That's the kind of thing that makes an imprint, makes an impact, I think.
Yes, and just the second thing would be service. As Christians, we serve in a multitude of ways, and it's something very good to be doing with your kids constantly, no matter what is going on, election or not. But civic engagement, for kids who can't vote, but they're coming home with things, or they seem to be, something is sparking with them. They seem to care about A, B, or C issue. Find out a way to serve with your kids. And that way, politics isn't always, again, just sort of something that happens during the election. And then, it's something we could ignore the rest of the time. But one of the ways in which you can serve your community, serve those around you who might be suffering, seeking justice, is to serve with your kids.
What beautiful reminder.
I know. I feel like I'm just jumping up and down over everything y'all are saying. This is so good.
Me too. You all, we've talked some about how to talk with our kids. We'd love to also ask you the question, just how could we be talking about the election or not talking about the election in front of our kids?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, goodness.
It's kind of like, ever since I've become a toddler parent, toddlers have revealed to me that my ability to emotionally regulate myself wasn't that great, apparently. Figured that out pretty quick with the why, and I'd be like, deep breath. First, it wasn't like that. It's kind of like with the election. I know what the election is doing to us all. And you talk about this all the time. And you talk about this far better than I can, about how the election can make us really angry. It brings out anger that we didn't know we had. It can make us really cynical. It can make us really anxious. And like Michael said at the beginning, our kids feel all this wafting off of us, no matter what age. They don't have to be, our toddlers can feel when any of these things are wafting off of us. And so talking about the election, I know what it's like when you're watching a cable news network or you've just finished a debate, or, maybe you did, go out and attend a school board meeting or PTA meeting or whatever it might be. And, that's what you're dealing with. And so I think recognizing that in the first place, asking yourself, what is politics doing to me? What am I feeling in this moment? Because our kids, if we are constantly modeling being very heated and very cynical, those are the emotions that they will most identify with politics.
Yeah, right.
That's the posture and the approach that they will most identify as a good way of posturing yourself and approaching politics. And so I say all these things because I know it's deeply, deeply challenging, because I know that we care about a lot of things. We care about our neighbors. We care about how things are run. We care about certain policies. And so therefore, when you're confronted with people who you feel like aren't achieving that well, yes, I get that all these things happen, but I think our kids see that and feel that. So Michael,
here's what I'd say. That's so good, Melissa. Our kids can tell what we really mean. And so I think sometimes we think that we're if we are yelling and are fired up and are saying very incisive things about our politics, the election, and then we just conclude it with, well, at least God is in control, as well, I did my part. No, they like see right through that. And so you really need to contend with what you actually believe.
Yeah.
Like what is the thing that's right at the core of you? Because our kids see that even when we don't. And so I think that's, I think so often we think of sort of the way we want to present ourselves to our kids and think that the presentation is all that the performance is all that our kids are getting. No, they actually learn how to not see the performance and see what's happening. You know, when they think I'm in the other room listening to music, how are they talking about how are mom and dad talking about the election?
Yes.
When it's not just family time kind of. And so yeah, you need to really wrestle with what fires you up the most. What is the thing that concerns you most? And you could even, to Melissa's point earlier, like be really open with your kids about that. Like, I want this to be the thing I stake my life in, but I'm struggling because at my job, it's all they talk about is how if the wrong person wins the election, it's the end of and so like openness can be a good part of that, but don't think your kids are just taking the company line and not paying attention to what you're doing when you're less guarded or less sort of performative.
I've struggled for years to find the right skincare product for me. I'm fed up with products on the market labeling themselves as clean or non-toxic, yet their ingredient list is alarming.
Someone mentioned men's skincare to me recently, and I'm still wondering if they were dropping a not-so-subtle hint.
Are you looking for a skincare product that can effectively combat aging and wrinkles and help restore the appearance of youth to your skin? Have you tried countless products and nothing has worked?
Are you talking to me? If so, no, I haven't been trying products. Are you giving me a hint now?
I'm talking to all of our listeners, and I have good news. Purity Wood's mission is to provide people with the cleanest and most effective healthy aging and longevity products available. All of their products are USDA certified organic, non-GMO, free of anything artificial, free of toxic preservatives and synthetic additives like pesticides, chemical fertilizers and dyes, parabens, and of course it's cruelty-free and never tested on animals.
Purity Woods products leverage the wonders of a revolutionary ingredient, maple leaf extract. Maple leaves contain anti-inflammatory antioxidants and hydrating properties which can help soothe irritated or inflamed skin while also plumping, brightening, and nourishing.
Their age-defying Dream Cream is a game changer. It will make you look and feel like you've jumped back years in time. Its powerful formula contains revolutionary maple leaf extracts, plus over 25 unique and potent ingredients that help eliminate fine lines, wrinkles, age spots, and uneven skin tone.
I think I have all those things. It was formulated by skincare chemists at the top of their field to create a product that supports collagen and elastin production without irritation, drying of the skin, or hormone disruption.
Well, I know I have that. Turn back time on the appearance of your skin with Purity Woods Age-Defying Dream Cream. Purity Woods is currently offering 17% off site-wide, but we have an additional 10% discount for our listeners for a total savings of 27%.
Go to puritywoods.com/RBG or enter code RBG at checkout for an additional 10% off your first order. That's PURITYWOODS.com and enter code RBG for a total of 27% off your first order.
I can't count how many parents come up to us that are pregnant with their third or fourth child. They are heroic for wanting to learn and grow. I wish we could give them free babysitting, spa days, and naps. But what we can do is tell them about our sponsor Needed to help them feel more energy, mental clarity, and resilient through products we've come to know and love from our friends at Needed.
There are a lot of options out there, but Needed is backed by over 4,000 nutrition and health experts, including OBGYNs, midwives, and dietitians, and the brand really understands the unique needs of parents.
I am loving the cognitive support, stress support, because who doesn't need that? I've noticed better focus, attention, mental clarity, concentration, and a better ability to cope with stress. I even have more energy since I started taking it. And we want that for you too. In fact, 92% of women taking cognitive support saw an improvement in overall cognitive function within 4 weeks.
Modern life can be stressful. Needed Stress Support is a clinical strength herbal blend to support your mood, energy, hormone balance, and overall well-being to help you feel and look your best. And they even have products specifically designed for dads too. I love their men's multi.
If you're looking for products that can optimally support your brain health, mood, energy, mental clarity, and replenish your nutrient stores after having one or more kids, check out Needed's comprehensive line of nutritional products.
Head over to thisisneeded.com and use code RBG for 20% off your first order.
That's THISISNEEDED.com and use code RBG for 20% off your first order. Okay, well, I love that we have bounced back and forth so much from kids to ourselves because it is a good convicting wake up call for all of us. And you have a blog post, Michael, that was based on some remarks you made in an event called How Christians Should Think About Voting.
Yeah.
I love even just the title. So will you talk more about that and the harm politics is causing not just in our country, but in the body of Christ?
Yes. So voting is perhaps the least expressive the least personally expressive political action you can take.
Mm.
The least personally expressive political action you could take. Yet for a number of reasons, the vote is taken to be this thing that comes from deep in our souls, and it's the expression of all of our hopes and desires for the world. And part of that is because people in charge, people who run voting, get out the vote campaigns, think that is what will motivate people to vote. I talk to people who say, if that's what the vote is, then I don't know what I'm doing on election day, because I look at the options and I say, wait, I thought I was told my voice was good. I don't see my voice on the ballot. I don't see. So we need to stop this. We need to get away from loading the vote with a weight that it cannot bear, and instead think about a vote as a limited tool for stewarding our influence, an influence that is shared in a community, in a broad community, stewarding our influence towards the love of our neighbors, towards willing their good. So the vote is not a pure, unmediated expression of your own identity. Your vote is your choice about among the available options, the mediated, contingent options in front of you, which one in your limited discernment is the best expression of love for your neighbors. We at the Center for Christianity and Public Life, we offer what we call a non-manipulative voting guide for Christians. And it involves basically 5 questions that I think are great for family dinner table conversations. And the questions are, first, just what are you passionate about? What life experiences do you have? So, for instance, I'm adopted, and so I consider the adoption tax credit when I vote more than 99.9% of other people, as it should be. It would be a weird thing if people prioritize that as much as I do, but it's part of the experience that God has given me, and so it's okay to consider the issues that you're passionate about as you're voting. Question 2 is, how would the candidates meet your needs? I think it's really important to identify your own self-interest when voting, so that you don't conflate it with the interests of others. Third is, how will the candidates meet the needs of your community, with a particular attention towards the least of these, towards what Howard Thurman called the disinherited. Fourth is, how will the candidates affect our culture? So I think we've all seen, and we just know from our kids and the kinds of conversations they have in school, right? Like our kids are not just affected by what the education policy is, the way politics affects our kids' lives, and to a large extent is the kind of culture our politics produces. And then just the final question is, if your vote determined the outcome of the election, would you regret how you voted? And this is just meant to, again, like strip away or allow us to move away from considering voting as like a brand identity statement, and to actually consider the vote for what it is, which is you're voting to put someone in a particular office with particular responsibilities. And that's the basis on which we should be deciding our vote. And so these kinds of questions, along with others, can help us, I think, conceive of our vote in a way that's less overwhelming, and something that we could process in the context of community.
So good.
Love those questions.
Me too.
And the thought of
I hope
family.
everyone has pulled over and written them down to talk about them at the dinner table.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
Okay, you mentioned this briefly, and we wanted to go back to it. You talk about politics as a forum for loving your neighbor. We love that. And would love to just ask you to talk more about how we do that, especially in this particular climate we're living in.
Yeah. So it's really important. There is no 3-point policy plan that equals love. There is no vote this November equals love. Love is about the orientation of our hearts. That's how I mean in this context. And so even with our kid, when your kids express an opinion on politics, a good question of that is, how is that an expression of love, of the will to good? And you don't need to agree with their answer, but I do think you could hold them to, if you don't have an answer at hand for why what you're advocating for is an expression of love, of willing to good. Because, right, so much of our politics these days, unfortunately, is a direct expression of animus, a direct expression of harm. And so we can actually present the question, how does your opinion, how is what you want in that situation an expression of love? And that's a beautiful place to be. And, what I've said is, I usually say this in the context of the church, but I think it's totally appropriate in the context of the family as well, which is our goal is not a political uniformity, but a spiritual integrity. So the kinds of values that we want our kids to have, the kinds of faithfulness that we want to be defining of their lives, does not express itself in a political agenda. It expresses itself, again, through the orientation of their heart, through their intentions. And so when we could build up that kind of culture in our families and in our kids, that's incredibly powerful in the context of the family. But here's a sort of added bonus, a side effect. Imagine what a blessing our kids will be to their communities and to our public life if they learn in the context of our families that, no, when you go to politics, you get your spiritual and emotional needs met elsewhere. When you go to politics, you're freed up to will the good of your neighbors. And that's why you go there. What a blessing, that would be in a politics that can so often be full of antagonism and self-serving spirits. Yeah.
Y'all, I feel like we could keep talking for hours. This is so good. And I am confident that people who are listening are going to want to say, how can I find more? How can I listen more, read more, all the things? So will y'all talk about all the things you're doing right now, touch on them all through writing, podcasting, speaking, the Center for Christianity and Public Life, where they can be in all the spaces that you both are?
Yes. So first, we have a Substack. Ours is called Where We Are, and ours is all about Christianity and politics. That's what we've made it about. And you can subscribe for free. Become a paid subscriber, and it's that kind of subscription system.
Perfect.
out posts each week. And again, we put out occasional podcast episodes because with the Center for Christianity and Public Life, Michael has a podcast with the That Sounds Fun Network.
Yeah. So with the That Sounds Fun Network, we've partnered around a podcast called The Morning Five, and Mondays through Thursdays, people can join us for just 5-7 minutes every day of prayer, scripture, and reading of the headlines. And then folks can learn about that podcast and about everything else we do at the Center for Christianity and Public Life at ccpubliclife.org. And would love for folks to engage with our work there.
And where's the Substack? Now that I know what it's called.
whereweare.substack.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I just want to give a shout out and say I have the Where We Are newsletter in my inbox as we speak. And I love that it begins with what you need to know this week, because every one of us feels overwhelmed by all the things we could know.
Well, I'm so sorry I haven't signed up yet. I'm signing up today. That's good.
Yeah, you're talking about the Monday political brief. It's basically like the skim, but for political news, because I know that you're all overwhelmed. And so we curate it for you about things that we know that our particular community is interested in.
Well, and how often do you get the news from people that you trust? I mean, I'm so grateful. I'm going to hang up this Riverside call and go sign up.
You will love it.
I'm so excited.
That is exactly what I wanted to say, because I think, there are so many angry, fear-based voices shouting in this moment in time. And I think every one of us needs wise, steady, trustworthy voices. And your voices are two that we love and trust.
Yes,
so
amen.
We cannot encourage parents enough to lean into the great resources that you all are offering. So thank you both.
Thank you.
And we like to end with something fun and food related. So we've got a 2-part question for you. Part 1 is queso or guac. We're going to make you vote there. And then part 2 is what's your favorite taco?
And your vote does matter here.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is a hard one for you. Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to be clear to all of your listeners. I do love both, but if I had to choose, because it would be queso. And my favorite taco, I will eat a fish taco in San Diego on the beach. That is a fish taco on the beach in San Diego.
That sounds amazing.
That sounds incredible.
The good thing about being married is if one orders queso, the other could order guacamole. So that's always a beautiful
the case
thing.
For marriage.
Yeah.
Love it.
And I just love a good carnitas taco. I love that. Oh.
Well, we need to come to Baltimore and have tacos with y'all, because we're just so thankful.
Place that's really good. So
okay, we're gonna put it on the calendar.
You too.
Thank you for all you're doing right now in this world.
I think we met just around the time that we were first. Our eldest was born, and so your work becomes more and more relevant as time passes. Yes,
you're so kind.
You're so kind.
Thanks, guys.
We're so grateful for the two of you.
Yes, we are. David, what a team we have that we get to call friends who help make this podcast possible.
Amanda Young, our operations manager.
Chris Starrett, our engineer.
Our management team at H Squared.
We are thrilled to be a part of the That Sounds Fun Network.
Our music was created by the insanely talented Dave Haywood of Lady A.
And if this podcast felt helpful to you, please consider subscribing, liking, sharing, all the things.
We are grateful for you and cheering you on always.